All right, let's go to the tentative budget. Some fun stuff here.
Fun stuff. So tonight you're seeing the tentative budget with the May 30 actual. So we still have 2 payrolls that need to be completed, as you heard discussed with Scott briefly during his Chief Financial Officer report. We're still holding out hope for some additional tax collection to come in, which is roughly about $50,000. We're under budget right now on our revenue side, and 2 additional payments from evidence-based funding. I believe we received all 4 payments now from the state, correct?
That is correct.
Kristen, I cannot recall, has all of our reimbursement money been received or not yet, because we still have some federal dollars out there for room and board?
I don't think you're going to see another payment for special ed on that, which would equal the 1 payment from the prior year and then 3 payments from this current year to give you the 4 total. So I do not think there's going to be any additional revenue from those.
So if we go off of today's first read, this is a first read. Finance Advisory Council's meeting June 19th. We'll make some additional tweaks off of the June 30th actuals, and we'll ask that the board approve this at the July meeting as a tentative budget, so that we can start continue operating the school district and start purchasing and things that need to be done for the start of the school year. The tentative budget needs to stay on display for a minimum of 30 days. We post it both on our website, and it's available in the school district business office. And then the formal hearing is done in September. So we have at least a good 3 months to continue to work on this and revise this. As you can see on page 172 of Board Book, the anticipated revenue is $26,332,456. The anticipated expenditures on page 173 of Board Book is $27,189,712. So, if you go to page 174, the summary chart, revenues are in green, expenditures are in red. The projected deficit at this point is about $850,000. Now, PMA presented, did a 5-year financial projections for the board and kind of presented a worst case scenario to the board in February. And based on a general 3% increase across the board for all employees, they had a deficit at around 750, 716, something in the 700s. After the collective bargaining was complete, the number was lowered to roughly 500, and roughly another $100,000 was reduced, a little over $100,000. So we're just about 580. But we've had an increase of close to $300,000 in out-of-district tuition for some transfer students and incoming freshman students. So that's why the deficit has gone up instead of being lower than what was discussed at the board meeting when we approved the contract and discussed the financials. So, a lot of information. I'm sure there's some sticker shock here. Kristen and Scott have worked together on this. Kristen will be taking ownership fully of the budget at the Finance Advisory Council meeting and as we move into July. Page 175 provides some analysis of our financial performance. Put a couple notes on the bottom. 176 will provide you kind of like key expenditures, the breakdown there with a note on the bottom. What I would say to you is this number will probably change, is with our best of intentions that it goes down, not up, as we continue to refine this process with the Finance Advisory Board.
Rather goes up. Rather.
The deficit goes down.
Yes.
All right, not up. But it's the first read tonight, so there's a lot of information there for you to take in. Kristen, Anything specific that you want to point out or call to their attention?
I would call your attention to take a look, if you haven't, at the assumption pages. We tried to highlight the things that were changing significantly that would have an overall impact on the budget. And so I don't want to spend the time going through line by line on those, but I would say those 2 pages are important to look at to kind of get a sense of the major things that have changed that have impacted the budget. And then also, I would just encourage the board, welcome questions before the July meeting, but also at the same time, please know, I already have a list of things that need to be updated, because this budget was created based off of April 30th actuals, and several things have changed, and some staffing has changed, and some special ed information has changed already. And so the July budget that I'll be presenting will be updated and actual, but I will go over the changes. But please submit your questions so that I can make sure I answer them, because I know it's a lot of information. The biggest thing that will probably stick out when you look at the significant revenue assumptions and expenditure assumptions is the idea of flow-through. And so in the past, this is a grant, and in the past the money has gone directly through LADSI, which is our special ed cooperative. And now the requirements have changed, and that money needs to come to us first. So you're gonna see a big increase in revenue, but it's just gonna go right back out in expenditures, and we use that to offset the purchase services that we get through LADSI. So that's probably the biggest notable change that you'll see as you look through this.
Can I ask about the primary reason for the deficit increase as projected is the projections due to an increase for special education tuition. Is that basically based on the population or different numbers than we anticipated, or is that per state mandate or different requirements? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So it is based off of the additional students that we're getting as freshmen, as well as we have seen a trend of our transition students. So once after a student finishes their senior year, they have the option to stay on for transition services. And the trend is that more students are electing to do that, and they have the right to stay on until their 22nd, up until their 22nd birthday. And so we've had several students that are receiving outplay services, as well as students here that are receiving, that were either in some of our co-taught classes or some of our more significant programs. But in general, more of those students are electing to stay on for transition services. Some are a year, some stay on for almost, that full time. But I think that, along with the new incoming freshman class, is what's resulted in that increase.
Do we have any trend, or how soon do we know what those trends are for freshmen coming in? I mean, we coordinate with middle school or we sort of have an idea of what those trends are going to be the next 5 years?
I don't know about 5. Our special ed director attends the 8th grade annual review in January before those students are transitioned to us, but it's not something that you can necessarily, you may be able to identify some trends, but that's a very fluid process in the middle school districts.
Yeah, we can certainly get those numbers, but they do fluctuate. You can't predict when the students' needs are going to change and they need to be outplaced. So that is difficult to project outside of the incoming freshman class.
I want to say when we do our attendance
It's in November.
enrollment projections, I think, Mary Ann, on your sheet that you send to the feeder schools, I think it does ask for a number of outplaced students
does,
currently.
yes.
Now, it doesn't say whether those kids are K through 8 or what level, but it does say the number of each school, in feeder schools, how many outplaced students they have. So it does give us some general number.
And on that report, we've added recently just an overall look at special ed in terms of numbers. Total students that have an IEP, total number of students that stay on for transition, and outplacement to kind of show you the history of that. We don't go into too much more detail after that, but we do provide the overall numbers in regards to the various programs.
So, just a little question with our special ed. They used to have a little company, the Shredder Works. Do they still have that company? And
Yes.
does that money come into our budget? Or is that money designated for special education?
It's money that's helped generated through the cooperative, so the little bit of revenue that it does generate helps offset paying the employee to work it over the summer and supervise the students over the summer. So it's not something that's gonna help.
Do we
this.
see it though? You know, so where would we see it? So we probably should see money come in and go out? Or
It goes through the cooperative, and then the cooperative, I think.
Okay, so we don't see it?
We don't.
Okay. Okay.
I could check on that to verify. Kristen and I will look at it. I just had this conversation though with the LADSI board.
I mean, I think we have some challenging discussions ahead of ourselves related to the budget.
I would agree.
Yes.
So in advance, I appreciate your efforts. I have many questions, and we can sit and talk.
I had a question also about the news coming out of Springfield and the fact that there is a budget, and I think if I read it correctly, some sense that there is that funding levels are, I'm actually not exactly sure how they compare to what was done before, but that, to what extent can that information is that already reflected or will be reflected or can be, I guess?
So we have in the budget reflected that we're receiving all of our evidence-based funding, which in the old system of general state aid, we didn't always receive all of that. So that's a new trend that we received this year and will receive next year. And then we have budgeted that we will receive all 4 payments for any state payments. And that hasn't been the case in the past, but we have budgeted for the fact that we do anticipate getting the 4 payments like we did this year. In past years, there were years where we only got 3 due to everything that was going on with the state.
All right.
We were anticipating a deficit. The
Right.
board was anticipating a deficit, and we weren't anticipating it
We
being.
weren't anticipating that, Joe.
No.
But yes, we were anticipating.
And we know that it goes down slightly next year with some retirements, and then 3 more retirements, it goes down significantly, but
We
I
got our
think
school trends.
Right.
I mean, we are looking at
staffing, class
adding to
sizes.
teachers.
Right.
So that's a factor. I mean, these are some things we got to talk about that we're going to ride through, right?
As I stated, the Finance Advisory Council meeting is June 19th, so if you continue to peruse this and you think you have some questions or would like us to look at some areas that would be helpful, to get those to us before June 19th so that we can knock that out or address those that morning and have discussions with my advisory council before we bring you a second draft of this on July 9th.
Okay, let's move on. Matters for closed session. Personnel, student discipline, sales, lease, pending, intimate litigation, collective negotiation, school safety, and confidentiality of closed session minutes. Visitor statements, there's no visitors. Discussion items, any requested discussion items? To my left, to my right. Okay. Consideration of items for future meetings. To my right, to my left. And then resolve for closed session. Motion for close.
Resolved that the Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, student discipline, purchase, sale, or lease of rental property, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiations, and school safety.
In the confidentiality of the minutes, closed session minutes. Please add that.
In the confidentiality of closed session minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a second. Laura?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, that is it. We'll meet
Okay.